Hello, tubers. This is part 3 of a series about Wasteland 3 and Supreme Jerk Mode. This part deals with combat. Most of Wasteland 3 is about fighting, and if we can't win in combat, we can't move forward in this game. That said, we won't go into detail here on the basics of turn-based combat, and we're assuming that we all know the basic story thread of the game. Not all encounters end up in combat. There are some encounters where a skill check can avoid fighting. However, these are the minority. Most of the encounters will end up in a firefight. So let's discuss tactics first. Tip number 1. Keep the distance. In a typical encounter, the enemies are spread out far back, and if our team mostly has melee weapons, we have to cross that space between ourselves and the enemy before we can deal any damage, and we're effectively losing a turn or two before we can score a hit.
Of course I heard of them.
Action points in this game are limited, and the more we move, the less our capacity to hit. What we want to do is to sit behind cover and keep shooting. That is why the ranged build works better, because you can start shooting as quickly as possible. In addition, with more powerful enemies, we need to put as much distance between ourselves and the enemy as possible to weaken or down the enemies before they can come close and do damage to us. If an enemy takes a turn or two before he can hit us, then hopefully within this time we have severely weakened him before he has a chance to strike. At Supreme Jerk Mode, the enemies deal serious damage. Two baddies can most likely down one of our guys if they focus their fire on that guy. So all this is about getting in more hits before getting hit ourselves, and we need distance for that. Tip number 2. Bring the buddies. As discussed in one of my previous videos, we bring in the max amount of friends into our team. This is a sample of my team after Aspen. We're 14 here. Aside from the core team of 6, we have the Provost, the Poltron, Major Tomcat, Billy and Jean, and all sorts of critters and robots that we pick up in our missions or using Animal Whisperer. Most of these pets deal melee damage. Their presence also keeps some of the enemies from going straight for the core team. Having 14 allies distributes the shots of the enemies, and sometimes all the critters running about distracts the enemy from focusing on the guys that matter the most. I use the term bullet math for this. 8 shots on 14 team members gives us better odds than 8 shots on the 6 guys of the core team. That said, I tend to get emotionally attached to the pets, and when they die, that's it. We can't revive them like we do to the 6 team members. There are times when I have to push my team forward prematurely because one of the critters might be dying. These buddies also suffer from status effects like burning and poison, and can be hurt by friendly fire, so having them around is both an asset and a liability, but combat seems to be much easier with them around. In fact, once combat ends, I give first aid to the pets first, because downed team members can be revived, but if the pets die, that's it for them. Tip number 3. If possible, shoot first. We must avoid a situation where the enemy gets to shoot first, because when this happens, we lose the initiative of combat, and we are immediately on the defensive. To start combat, we either use the attack option in our conversation, or just shoot an enemy first. I'm sure that some players will feel uncomfortable in shooting first, but in this game, if there's no other option than combat, I don't mind taking the first shot. That's being the jerk in Supreme Jerk Mode. There are many other places for our moral choices in this game, like issues on the synths, the slaves, and the cannibals, so I don't mind shooting first. However, initiative is not just shooting first. Our team must be properly set up before combat starts. If you're out of position when combat starts, and not everybody is ready for combat, and the enemy is shooting first, usually, in Supreme Jerk Mode, the fight won't end well. We cannot access our inventory once combat starts, and because of the meager tolerances in Supreme Jerk Mode, we have to make sure that we are absolutely ready for combat before the shooting starts. we have the right weapons, we are fully loaded, and our utility belts, health boosts, and other things. Tip number 4. Set it up. To set up before combat, I let the snipers hang back a bit, and the AR guys are up front, so that all the team's ambush shots go roughly at the same time on the same enemy. Because I shoot first, I usually have a sniper with an extra long-range rifle with a silencer that deals extra damage on the first shot, and sometimes this one shot is enough to down the enemy. However, this first shooter, let's call her a scout, can't be too far away from the rest of the group. Our team has to be near each other to join initiative in combat, because if they're too far, they won't join in, and someone with initiative has to be near them for them to join in. That's just how the game works. Here is a pic where my scout was too far from the rest of the team and has initiated combat without the rest of the team having a clue. To make the rest join combat, the scout has to run back to the team, and that's bound to be losing a turn or two before everyone can actually be ready for combat. And in particularly difficult encounters, I line the team up in a chain.
Chain, chain, chain. Chain, chain, chain. Chain, chain, chain.
The scout will initiate the team member behind her, and that guy will initiate the one behind him, and so on, until the rest of the team joins combat. They are arranged like this because some of the enemies deal area or splash damage, so keeping our guys apart minimizes the group damage that the enemy can inflict on us. Tip number 5. Check the odds. At the start of the game, most of our team members are poor shots, and stacking up on awareness makes them better shots and can deal more damage. However, there will be cases where even a 95% chance to hit will still miss. The die roll simply chose the 5% to miss. When the guys have a 50% chance to hit or less, especially snipers who can take only one shot, I sometimes keep them on ambush mode rather than taking the shot. Doing this will sometimes allow a better percentage shot during the enemy's turn if they move out of cover. Unless there's an enemy that must absolutely be eliminated during that turn, shooting at 50% hit chance is what it is. 50-50, and that may just be a waste of bullets and action points. With the AR guys, we can be a bit more lenient because they have 3 bullets or more going in, so there's still a chance to hit. The AR guys also have a perk where they have a better hit chance on enemies behind cover, and sometimes they can destroy the cover that the enemy is hiding behind. Tip number 6. Special strike is our friend. A higher charisma will allow us to fill the strike meter faster, and the special strike, especially with snipers and automatic rifles, is very useful. This will automatically raise our hit chance to 95% and will allow us to hit a specific spot on the enemy for some bonuses, such as additional damage, or a chance to slow down or bleed, or destroy the armor, or explode whatever they're wearing for insta-kill. However, this insta-kill will also damage nearby enemies and allies, so we need to watch where our friends are before using this. So if there's this annoying enemy hiding behind cover, hopefully we can have some team members with special strikes, and this will negate the benefits of cover. One cool combo is to have a sniper pack a handgun. The handgun costs only 3 action points, and every time we score a hit, the strike meter fills up. But when the strike meter fills up, we can now use the sniper rifle. With this tactic, the strike meter fills up much faster. Also, if we come across a particularly tanky enemy, it may be wiser to inflict bleeding at the start and let nature take its course, rather than pouring all our bullets on that one guy. I tried the melee special strike and I did not find it so useful because it deals area damage, which may not be helpful if there are friends nearby. Tip number 7. Choose the targets. Generally, it's a good idea to thin out the enemy horde as quickly as possible, meaning it's usually wiser to go after the weaker enemies one at a time with the aim of having less of them on the next turn. 10 enemies at half health are still 10 enemies on the next turn, and that's 10 of them dealing damage. Instead of that, we focus on 1 or 2 guys so that on the next turn there's just 8 of them, and 8 baddies will always deal less damage than 10 of them. In addition, some enemies can heal each other, so not eliminating them at a turn will just be a waste of action points and bullets. However, there are some cases where some of the enemies are especially lethal, like heavy weapons or flamethrowers. So when these guys show up, I make them priority targets, even if it will take longer to thin out the crowd. Another sneaky enemy are trucks. After several turns, trucks spawn out additional enemies, so I usually destroy them as quickly as I can. Some trucks are the clown truck at the Clown Museum and the Patriarch's truck. So depending on the situation, we need to choose our targets. Sometimes it's the mini bosses, sometimes it's the weakest guy around. The longer the battle rages, the greater a chance to be downed, so the quicker the fight, the better for us. Tip number 8. Explosives, mechanics, animal whisperer, and nerd stuff are combat skills. Let's not forget, during a firefight, we can throw a grenade, deploy a turret, turn an enemy critter to our side, or hack a robot to fight for us. Sometimes it's actually easier to use these skills than trying to kill whatever we're shooting at. The mechanic can also disable generators that run the turrets, which may be easier than trying to destroy the turrets themselves. Talking about turrets, during the most difficult missions, I use the mechanic to deploy turrets to block doorways. That way I can keep the enemies from coming in and overwhelming the team and keep the distance. Sometimes I also block doorways with turrets to prevent the pets from surging forth into a lethal situation, choosing to let my bullets do the work instead of risking the lives of the pets. Moving along this train of thought, sometimes it's better to shoot something else. There are situations where it's easier to destroy the generator running the turret than trying to destroy the turret itself, and sometimes it's easier to shoot a fuel tank nearby that can explode and damage multiple enemies than try to target one specific enemy. Tip number 9. Mod the weapons and armor. Wasteland 3 gives us options, and while some of these may look trivial at first, almost all of these contribute to a better game, meaning a game that gives us a chance to win. I choose to bring a weapons modder around during the missions, because they give a big boost to the weapons we can carry. Exhibit A. This is my reach out and tag somebody rifle, which my scout uses to aggro the enemy and start combat. With the mods, it has extended range. A usual sniper has 24 meters of range. This one has 30 thanks to modding. Second, it has a max capacity mag, meaning it has more bullets than the usual sniper rifle. That means I can keep shooting for a longer time before reloading. Lastly, it has a phase silencer, which has more penetration and a 30% additional damage to sneaky shots, which is what I basically do when starting the combat. Exhibit B. This is basically a submachine gun, but it has been modded to have the range of an automatic rifle. Its magazine is called a quick fire mag, and while it does not increase the number of bullets, this mag decreases the action points to fire from 4 action points to 3 at a penalty of 1 action point in reloading. At max coordination, my AR boy will have 12 action points and will have 4 shots with this setup per turn. It also has the phase silencer, which deals additional penetration and can be devastating if I choose to use it to start the fight. Exhibit C is a handgun with a range longer than a standard submachine gun but takes only 3 action points to shoot, plus a max capacity mag for more bullets. So there are many weapons in my inventory that are like this. An automatic rifle that has the range of a sniper, 1 bullet weapons that now have at least 5 bullets in them, and so on. Armor modding is also useful because some armor mods can bump up lighter and earlier armor to have as much protection as the more advanced ones. While these are modes that I commonly use, there are much more. You may find some of them more useful for your own style. Tip number 10. Have fun. Ultimately, this is a game. We're meant to have fun. If we're getting our butt kicked, maybe it's better to step back a bit, analyze the situation, and rethink our tactics. Maybe we're approaching the situation the wrong way. Supreme Jerk Mode does not tolerate a careless move, so we need to be at our best in this mode. That said, once we figure it out and the team is as good as we can make it, it's definitely doable. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope to see you on the fourth and last part of the series, where I deal with more tips for Wasteland 3 and Supreme Jerk Mode.